morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Let's jump into our cosmic weather today, see what's going on. Okay, our first stop is at space weather, see what's coming towards planet Earth from out in the solar system. Our wind, solar wind, is at 389.0 kilometers per second. See the density of protons, has increased. We go over here and we see that all of this is part of our storm that is going on. Now our storm at the moment is a 6. Remember last week it got up to a 7? Well, now we're at a 6. The scale only goes up to a 9. This means that we are getting some solar activity that is hitting the planet, causing some sort of geomagnetic storm. And as we go down here, we can see our coronal holes. We got a few more. Definitely have a little more significance to them. We don't have a big chance of M-class flares or X-class in the next 24 hours, but we do see that our geomagnetic storm activity has gone up. If you're in the mid-latitudes, you're going to see some activity, 35% chance. If you're in the higher latitudes, 35% chance is going to be severe. So it just depends where you're at. And we can get a little bit more information right here. It tells us that right here. As expected, a coronal mass ejection hit Earth's magnetic field on October 8th. That's today at 500 Universal Time. The impact was weak. Nonetheless, solar wind conditions in the wake of the CME are favorable for polar geomagnetic storm activity. High latitude sky watchers should be alert for auroras. Okay. So this is the CME that came off the sun on the 5th and it's hitting us today. So there you go. That's our space weather. What's going on? So we got some solar wind and things to deal with. Now astrologically, let's look we're right over here. Okay, astrologically we're dealing with the sun sign of Libra, which is an air sign. So our conscious mind is dealing with issues of the air. Air is communications. In tarot cards, air is swords, but you take away the first letter S and you got words. So air is words, air is actions. In tarot, the card that represents Libra is justice, which is all about karmic balance. So we're using our words and our actions to balance everything out in our life. That's what is going on with the conscious mind. Now the unconscious mind is represented by the moon. And the moon sign, right here we could see, is in Cancer. Cancer is an emotional sign, so it's been like that over the course of the weekend. Have you noticed any extra emotions in your life? If so, it's probably due in part to the fact that the moon is in Cancer. So Cancer being a water sign, dealing with the emotions. It's the crab is the symbol. The crab is the crab because the hard shell of the Cancer represents protecting the soft insides from all of the intensity of the emotions that hit it. And we're living in a world where everything around us is energy. Well, this energy, some of it is emotional energy, some of it is intellectual energy, and we have to be prepared. So having that hard shell up of our protection around us helps protect us, because as you and I both know, if we allow our emotions to get out of control, decisions don't always get made from the best place. So the best thing we could do is find a way to balance out those emotions, stay calm with them. So we've got air on the conscious mind, water on the unconscious, and these are the two elements we're working today, air and water. Okay, now we move from there, and we look at our moon phase, and we're making our way back down to a new moon again. So the new moon will be in about, a week? Looks like it's about a week away. The moon goes into 4 quarters from a new moon. First quarter, second quarter is the full moon, third quarter is where it is now, and then the fourth quarter is back down to the new moon again. And the phase from the new moon on upward is called the waxing moon. Wax on, and then waning moon is when it goes from the full moon down, and that's when the energy is dissipating. That's where we're at right now. Our Mayan Oracle, another way of looking at energy, tells us today is a 3-tone day. 3 tones called the electric tone. It's represented here in this wave spell. We're in a new wave spell of the monkey. We're in the wave third position, which is the Skywalker. The monkey is all about playfulness and illusion. So this period of time right here, these 13 days, are all play, illusion. You ever see the Lion King? Remember the monkey Rafiki? Think of Rafiki, the medicine man monkey, and then apply that idea of what you have in your mind to this wave spell. That idea. Now, here is the Skywalker for today, right in the middle, today's kin. The guide for today is the Earth. So today would be called the 3-tone, which is the electric tone, the electric Skywalker, guided by the Earth. And then supporting cast members, you have the like-minded energy here, which is the World Bridger. The challenging energy of the day, which is the Night, which is about abundance, dreams. And the hidden power of the occult kin is the Star, which is all about beauty and elegance. And remember, occult is just a word, and it only means that which is hidden. If someone tries to tell you it means more than that, refer them to the dictionary and have them look it up, and they will find out that it doesn't mean anything bad that society tries to tell you it means. Okay, and then we have the phrase for today is I activate in order to explore bonding wakefulness. I seal the output of space with the electric tone of service. I am guided by the power of navigation. And today on the Gregorian calendar is the 8th of October. And as you can see, we are still in this middle pillar here. In the middle pillar. So remember, this middle pillar is kind of like that eye of the storm. Everything revolves around it. That magical chamber in the center of everything. Because the first 6 and the last 6 reflect each other. The middle one is just there as the standing point that everything revolves around. Okay? So there you have it. That's our cosmic weather today. That's the energy we're dealing with. We've got air, we've got water, we've got playfulness, illusion. We've got a lot of different things we're working with. So there you have it. Because life's all about energy. Now, we are 74 days away from December 21st, 2012. That means we have 74 days left in this particular cycle. And as we all know, when a cycle comes to a conclusion, there's always a lot of activity at the end of that cycle. Think of like a race. When you get to the end of a race, it's the last stretch of race where there's the kick, where everybody really kicks into their next gear. If it's the last, here we have the political race which is going on. Look how things have gone into the next phase of the process that they're going through. And anything we look at, when it comes to the ending phase, there's always a big conclusion before we go on to the next phase. Well, December 22nd is the beginning of the new cycle. December 21st is the end of the cycle. So between now and then, these next 74 days, just keep yourself open for the changes which are taking place. They're not all physical changes. A lot of these changes are subtle changes that are affecting your emotional body, your intellectual body, and the other chakra centers. So it's important to make sure that we are learning more and more how to work with the energy that's available to us, because the energy coming in is a lot more intense. We could see from the solar flares and the solar wind what's coming in. It's a bit more intense energy. And you know how movies and life seem to imitate each other? Well, think of how many times you've seen a movie that has talked about the DNA of the human being down here on Earth being affected by what's coming from the solar system. One of the movies is the Fantastic Four, and didn't they all get hit by solar wind? Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about DNA changes. Last week I played a couple of pieces that involve DNA change. So important things going on, not just physical, and the more we pay attention underneath, the better. And that's why we do like the meditations at the end to try to hone ourselves in, get ourselves all focused. Okay? So from there, first piece I'm going to play today, and this is part 1 of a piece by Gregg Braden. It's an interview about human evolution in 2012. And I'm only going to play about 10 minutes of this. It's a 15-minute piece. I'm not going to play the whole thing, and this is one of several parts. I'm not going to go through the whole series here. I'm going to leave the link available for you. When I get done with the show, everything will all be posted up, and you'll have the links available to you to be able to check it out. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. Let's get on over to the piece, see what this is all about.
In the last 5 years, I've had the opportunity through my work. Been on every continent of the Earth with the exception of Antarctica. And while I have not been in every country, I've spoken with people from the tribes and the cultures and the traditions. And what I can say is that almost universally there is a sense that we have entered into a time very unique, unlike any other time that anyone remembers in the writings or in the history. And it's characterized a number of different ways. But more often than not, people say they feel like something began and it has yet to complete, or they're waiting for the other foot to fall or the other shoe to drop is the way they feel. And it's bigger than 9/11. It's bigger than the war in Iraq. Those may perhaps be symptoms of something, but they sense a low-level anxiety, a tension, if you will, that something big is about to happen, and that although we may not know it consciously, that we are in some ways preparing for whatever that is.
And how are you perceiving what that thing is at this time?
Well, from my perspective, I've spent the bulk of my adult life studying and researching ancient texts, traditions, cultures, the wisdom of those who have come before us. And they do, in fact, the texts, some of the calendars going back over 18,000 years, that's before the last ice age, all point to this time in history. And they say that we are living a very unique time. In the words that they left for us, they describe the time as a time of great change, and we've all heard about the prophecies that all converge in this moment in history. And that doesn't mean a lot to someone in the West, because we tend to discount those. Well, as a scientist, what I can tell you as a former Earth scientist is that we are seeing measurable parameters that are changing and appear to be converging. For example, the magnetic fields of the Earth are in rapid decline right now. They reached a peak about 2,000 years ago. They have declined consistently, never looked back since then. We are now at the lowest magnetic point in global magnetics that we've been the last 2,000 years.
What exactly does that mean for us as a species?
What it means, in the geologic record, we can see this has happened at least 14 times in the last 4.5 million years. It generally, in the past, has been a precursor to what scientists call a reversal or a flip in the magnetic fields of the Earth. Not the Earth physically, rather the energetic sense, the field itself. And it's got to be a really weird day, the day that this happens. People obviously have lived through it before. The Hopi have talked about it in their traditions. Biblical traditions talk about this in Egyptian traditions. What we know is that the magnetic fields in our bodies are very closely related, that a change in the magnetic fields of the Earth affect our dream states. And people are talking about having very, very intense, very vivid dreams, sleep patterns, time and space. People feel that time is speeding up. And there's a very good, excuse me, a very good, excuse me, there's a very good scientific reason why we perceive that speeding up of time. So there are very,
Can you explain that?
There are very, very real measurable parameters that coincide with what the ancient texts and traditions say. So in addition to the magnetics dropping, there's a second parameter that the ancients called the heartbeat of the Earth. Scientists first measured this directly in 1899. It's a fundamental pulse of about 7.8 cycles or hertz per second. So it's just it's a constant pulse, and we believed that it was so constant it would never change. And we built communication systems, we built military weaponry based on this pulse, all up through the 1940s, 50s, 60s. So 1980s, 1990s, that pulse began to increase, and what we know is that our bodies, our cells, are tuned to this fundamental pulse of our Mother Earth, as the ancients said, and that our metabolism, our bodies, our rhythms, our cycles will try to match the pulse of the Earth. So as that pulse increases, to us it seems as though time is speeding up, because we're trying to keep pace with that fundamental heartbeat. So we have these two parameters, this pulse that's increasing, magnetics that are decreasing, and from the geologic record it appears that when those two parameters converge, that is a time the ancients called the Great Shift of the Ages, or the shift between the worlds. The native traditions to say we've lived in, we're in the fourth of 4 previous worlds, and when this world ends, we begin the 5th world. Mayan calendars go back over 18,000 years. They stop in the year 2012. They say beyond 2012, it will make no sense to track time the way you've tracked time in the past, because time will mean something very different to you. Egyptian calendars going back over 40,000 years say the Earth is going through a great change right now. So to answer your question, there are reasons in the cultural history that point to this period in time. Scientists now can measure parameters that are changing, and they know that's happening. The question is, what does it mean? So Western science is saying, we're seeing these things happen, we don't know what it means. The ancients are saying, this is what it means, and this is the opportunity for us to become better people. Because as we go through this change, it will push us to the very edge of who we believe we are. It will push the limits of our sensibilities. It will test us as a civilization and as a family like we've never been tested before. And we will learn that we need one another, and that is why they are pleading with us, the indigenous cultures, to remember our relationship to the earth, to care for the earth, to care for one another so that we can care for ourselves. If I understand the wisdom and the traditions correctly, it's the very act of living our lives in the presence of one another, of loving fully, intentionally, completely, of being present, being focused, being the best that we can be, by living life day in and day out. If we do that, by virtue of doing that, we have prepared in the only way that we really can for this time in history. And here's the reason why. You going to ask me the reason why?
Tell me the reason why.
Here's the reason why. It's because what scientists now tell us is that for every emotion, every feeling we have in our bodies, there's a chemistry that matches. So we literally have life-affirming or life-denying chemistries, hate chemistry or love chemistry. So that the anger, rage, and hate that we feel actually produces a chemistry that steals the life from our bodies. And as we all intuitively know, love, wisdom, compassion, understanding, tolerance, forgiveness imbues life into our bodies. So in the process of life, as we're going through these great tests, what we're actually doing is preparing ourselves in the only way that we would know how, by living life. And I think anyone you talk to anywhere in the world will say, man, something has happened. My relationships are harder than they've ever been before. Job careers, challenges within themselves and their health. Everyone, it's almost like all the fluffy, easy lessons are gone. And whatever we're going through right now, it's the big stuff, the core issues that really, although they may have been healed in the past, they're asking for a greater healing. And by virtue of that, they are preparing us, training us, if you will, so that we may better accommodate the changes in the world around us, although we may not know that on a conscious level.
So if you were speaking directly to a 20-something disenfranchised individual who's cruising the net and they stumble upon you, they're looking for something, they're not feeling part of anything, what can you say that really prompts them to think and care and do or be something that makes a difference in the larger scale, or even to themselves? What would you say to one of
Well, I don't know that anyone can be prompted to care, because that is an internal initiative. What I would say to them first, if you're feeling disenfranchised, if you're feeling disconnected and out of sorts, that is perfectly normal and what I would expect for this time in history. People feel like their worlds have been turned upside down. What science now is telling us, and this ties into some of the work that we've talked about earlier, Western science between 1993 and the year 2000, under laboratory conditions, established the fact, and it is now a fact, that we are all connected through a field of energy. We're bathed in a field of energy that is the mirror. Literally, it provides the mirror of the world around us for what we have become from within. So if we find ourselves in a society that appears hateful, or families that are non-supportive and judgmental, that world around us is nothing more, nothing less than what we as individuals and collectively have become. If we want to change this world, we must become, and this is the key, the ancient wisdom, we must become the very things that we choose to experience in life. If we choose love and compassion, nurturing. We've got to become those things. And I've had people say to me, how can I become those if I don't experience it? And that's the great workshop of life. You must choose to become and demonstrate and live in the world the very things that you'd like to experience yourself. And in that way, from within, you open the door to the laws of the physics of this world that we're only beginning to understand, to give that back to you. So that, I think, is perhaps one of the greatest challenges. But those young individuals, I mean, everyone's feeling it. There is a generation that is feeling displaced or disenfranchised because the world that they're seeing makes little sense to them, and the answers they're receiving aren't the answers that meet their needs. So in their questioning, they're going after in their own way, seeking their own answers. I made reference to this in the talk earlier today. A 12-year-old boy that came up to me in the midst of a program during one of the breaks, and he handed me a piece of paper, and we just spoken about the breakdown of the peace process in the Middle East and the buildup of arms and weapons, and the fact that one half of the world's nations are at war right now. In this piece of paper, he printed it. He says, if you can't create the peace, if you can't find the peace in your time, he said, stop the war long enough to give us a chance. He didn't say stop the wars. He said the war. Their sense is, and so many young people feel that it's over anyway. There's a sense of hopelessness that we might as well live our lives and do whatever we want to do now recklessly because it's all over. And I hear that from people, and I can understand why they would feel that because this is such a unique time.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. This is the UFO News for today, and I have a number of stories for us. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get to it. First story comes to us from the moon. This was on October 3rd, and this is another one of those videos that show, you can see here, something leaving the moon. It says, no, I myself have recorded such things a few weeks ago, so I have to say this is 100% legit. I just want to know why so many are leaving and coming as of late. Aliens may be stocking up on employees to man the ship and move the moon away from the Earth. That would be undeniable proof that people ask to show that aliens exist. I'm sure they would only move it away a few days to prove a point. Anyway, he said, I shot 3 hours worth of video at over 50 UFOs at that time frame. I'm shortening them as I get down to the good stuff. They seem to be appearing from the surface. This is part 1. Okay. So we're going to be seeing them down in this area. There we go. There's one of them right there. Looks like it's moving right there. And it's always better if you're able to look at this with a higher resolution. Alright. So there you go. You got the one of the moon. I'm going to move from here. Remember last week we saw whole groupings of them. This is just a few today in comparison to what there were. Okay, this is over Burbank, California. Okay, we have this object here, and then we have this object here that we're looking for. Taking a break from writing, went out to the rooftop for some fresh air, which was an excellent view of the mountains of Burbank. I saw this white object in the sky. It was very apparent. At first I thought it was an airplane, but it didn't appear to be moving, so I called my wife. We grabbed their cameras and began to take video and photos of the object. I expected to see an airliner in the pictures, but it wasn't. It hovered in one spot for about 5 minutes and headed northwest over the mountains. It was communicated to me telepathically that an orb had been released. It wasn't until we reviewed our photos later that we actually saw the orb in the photo. I felt calm and excited, as I have a connection with them and see craft frequently. Just the night before, I saw a large craft hover silently over me without any lights while I was walking my dogs. This was the first time I ever caught them on my camera, and I wanted to share. I'm not sure. We lost sight of the object when it was very distant. I'm not sure if it dematerialized or just left the range of my sight. Okay, so that's over Burbank, California. We've seen a couple of these as of late. Quite interesting, a little bit differently than some of the other ones we've seen. Okay, now we've got a this is a hovering UFO above Stirling, UK. Witness reports I filmed this enormous UFO flying over Kings Park golf course. Seems to just sit there. Grabbed my camcorder and started to film it. I was looking east in the direction it was headed. The object just disappeared into a cloud. Alright, that's a pretty good size one in there. As we watch through, I think it just fades out. It's close up, but eventually it just fades out. But I'll have the link up in a while so you can check it out on your own, see what you think. From there, we move over to Mexico. Now, here's another one of these strange things, right? I saw over Burbank. Said, watch this UFO. Orbs drop and assume the traditional jellyfish shape that is often seen in sightings. Also watch in full screen mode and you will see it dropping orbs out, some of which disappear within a few seconds, possibly cloaking. This was recorded on the 7th at approximately 11 a.m. The object came from the west and headed slowly towards the east of the city of Mexico. Thanks to Adrian Calderon by warning of the sighting. Okay. And we've got two videos here. Each video is about 5 minutes in length. And then, of course, when you watch it in the higher definition, if you really expand it, you can see more of the orbs coming out. And this is one of the interesting ones that I've seen lately. It's just this funny shape to it. Okay? So this is what we're seeing here. I'm going to move on, let you check that out on your own later. And then this one here took place over Israel. Now this may or may not be a flying saucer, not sure. It's definitely a UAV, unidentified aerial vehicle. Now news is stating that this is a UAV or unmanned aerial vehicle, and they decided this, by the way, moves at such high speeds from one position to another with sudden reverse moves that no jet could perform. This still has not been identified, and its surrounding countries is denied responsibility. So let's check this out. Whatever the case may be, there's object in question, and there you go. So something was shot down. Okay. Now they're calling this an unmanned aircraft as opposed to a UFO. And thus far, nobody has jumped up and claimed it. Okay. Alright, so there you go. That's that sighting. Very interesting. We'll see what kind of consequences that brings. And then we have Air Force super speed flying saucer schematics finally revealed. Existence of extraterrestrial life has still no solid supporting evidence, but flying saucer was almost a reality. A schematics and details of a military venture in 1950s that never been seen before was published a couple of days ago by the National Archives. This certain venture was called Project 1794, which its primary mission was to build advanced aircraft. According to the newly publicized revealed materials, U.S. Air Force had a close relationship with now-defunct Canadian firm and closely worked together for the plan of making a unique kind of aircraft. Project 1794 managed to reach as far as creating prototype design. The memo, starting in 1956, summarizes the results of prototype testing and reveals the exact goal of the developers. The saucer was planned to have a ceiling of more than 100,000 feet and a maximum range of around 1,000 nautical miles, as noted on the document. If the plan was followed out until the end, they would have made a flying saucer which could reach at the Earth's stratosphere with 600 miles per hour and an average top speed. The craft could also take off and land vertically. And then here we see some of the designs from the crafts. And here is an example of a type of ship that they were creating. And one of the things you do notice about these is that they have the U.S. Air Force certainly listed on there, so there'd be no mistaking if you saw one of these things. And again, this is not like the ships that we see. You can see very primitive in the movements that are going on. But it is a step in the right direction. Okay. Zip forward a little bit. Alright, so the video is available for you to check it out. And the only other UFO news report for today has to do with Columbus Day. Today is Columbus Day. And Christopher Columbus had a sighting. And the sighting was even written down in the ship's log on what he saw. So sightings go back quite a long time. From the time of Christopher Columbus and well before. So I think we're in a really cool time right now. As you heard from the beginning piece about 2012, and you hear the daily reports, the countdown, we're 74 days away from some big change. Something's taking place on the moon. There's UFOs up by the sun. There's stories that are coming out about Mayan findings more and more. We're getting closer and closer, so be excited about what's going on, because there's a really cool change which has taken place, and we just need to keep preparing ourselves, which we will certainly do each and every day on this show. Alright, so there you have it. That's our UFO news for today, and we jump away for just a couple of moments, and I'll be right back. Stay tuned.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of them.
Alright, I am back. I want to continue on here because I have a bunch more things to get to. Okay, now we're going to backtrack a little bit. Remember James Holmes when he went into the courtroom? The guy who shot up in the movie theater? Or so we are told. Well, here is some information that was scrubbed from the news. You didn't hear about this, but this adds a whole new twist to the story, or maybe it makes sense to what's going on. Check it out.
Alright, this is really huge news. Basically, this has to do with James Holmes being brought into the jail cell. He was being wheelchaired in, and somebody remembered this, and upon searching for it, luckily, that information was contained in a person's blog, and so it was an excerpt from a news site. So we searched for that excerpt, and we found out that it was from the Daily News, and that was actually posted on the 22nd, that inmates said that he was being wheelchaired in, and he had a towel covered over his face, so you couldn't see his face, and it was red, and that they also had to wash red paint off of his body. It looks like his hair had been spray painted red. And now check this out. So he's actually being wheelchaired in. You may think, well, what's the point? Because Holmes was found unconscious, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you that information in a minute. Not only that, but the inmates said that, like, the detention, whatever, the solitary confinement, there's a window on the door, and they covered that up with duct tape. More than likely, his face was covered and the window was covered because they're hiding the fact that this man was knocked out cold, unconscious. And obviously, when you see the video of him in court, he's barely keeping his eyes open. Now, so basically what's going on is he was drugged unconscious while other people performed the shooting. Another person. So, what else do we have to indicate that he was totally unconscious? Well, there was a spine board that you can see from the flybys underneath the car, suggesting that maybe they brought the spine board out because they thought that there was a victim. As you can hear from the police radio, it says, "I've got a victim in a white car, white Kia, I can't remember." I've got a victim in a white car, meaning that they saw individuals sitting in the car, and they were, I guess, like slumped over, and they would have been thought that they were a victim. And then obviously the doors would have been locked, perhaps, and so what they needed to do to get him out was to break the windows. And as you can see, that there's a window broken on the car, and there's glass. Basically, I just want to hammer home that he was brought in a wheelchair. Oh, and then the Daily News scrubbed that. They scrubbed that, so that information was removed, and it was removed the next day. But if you look for it, you'll find the cached version. So that's a really big deal. Why did they get rid of that? And then, oh yeah, and then obviously the mugshot was not taken until 3 days later. And why didn't they do that? Because he probably couldn't even keep his eyes open. So, I mean, what else do we need here to get you riled up and understand that this could have been one of us, either being shot by this corrupt government or being set up, and they're just getting away with it.
Okay, quite interesting, and I know you haven't heard that on the mainstream news yet, but you know what? I think I did hear a rumor that they were going to talk about it. As a matter of fact, I think Bill O'Reilly is going to talk about this on his show today. Yeah, probably not. But yeah, you can see something's really weird going on out there. Why would they do that? And it doesn't go with the story that most Americans are hearing. Most Americans aren't going to hear about the wheelchair because they would probably question. But then again, I don't know, would Americans question? I mean, you and I both know that there's a lot of Americans out there that take things as face value, so it often makes me wonder things like that. Would actually anybody question what was going on? Okay, here is something that should be questioned, definitely. This is a new bill presented to the House of Representatives on the 28th of September. It's called the Mass Fatality Planning and Religious Considerations Act. Now, in light of everything else we've talked about the FEMA camps and the coffin liners and the bullets and the DHS and all the other stuff, now we have a Mass Fatality Act? Huh. This is to amend the Homeland Security Act of 2002 to require the administrator of the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, to provide guidance and coordination for mass fatality planning and for other purposes. And it goes on to say here that in the findings, it says emergency preparedness often plans for how to prepare and provide for survivors of natural disaster, act of terrorism, or other man-made disaster, but fails to plan how to prepare for and respond to mass fatalities that result from such an incident. And then it goes on to say that funeral homes, cemeteries, mortuaries could be overwhelmed by mass fatalities, and then the different religions have different customs, so it's something they're considering. So the question is, what sort of event is coming that somebody is decided to put together a bill about mass fatalities? Interesting. We'll just keep an eye on that. Okay, this is a piece on the TSA. Now, again, I don't know why we're letting these criminals get away with things, but these are criminals who, by their own admittance, are stealing. And this is from someone who had been arrested and then an interview, and others over the course of time. There's pedophiles that work for the TSA. There's criminals. They lie, they cheat, they steal. They don't understand the very basics of their job. They're standing next to machines that don't work and yet put out enough radiation that there have been issues with some cancer that has come up with some of the TSA agents that have been standing close by. Again, all of this is kept hush-hush from the public. Now, look what TSA wants to put in. Molecular body scanners. How far do they think they're going to go? Listen to this.
All right, the holidays are right around the corner, which means a bunch of you will be traveling. So we wanted to tell you about an interesting piece of technology coming soon to an airport near you. I'm talking about new laser scanners, capable of detecting every tiny trace of any substance on your body. So the stated purpose of this is obviously to find gunpowder or bomb-making materials, but it can also trace the level of adrenaline in your body, not to mention tiny bits of marijuana that might be on your clothes or skin, even the crumbs from the Cheerios you had for breakfast. It's all outlined in an article in Gizmodo. The company behind this technology is Genia Phonetics, subcontracted by In-Q-Tel to work with the Department of Homeland Security. Now, here's how it all works. It fires a laser that provides what's called a molecular level feedback at a distance of more than 150 feet away. It's expected to be implemented at airports and border crossings across the country in the next year or so. After that, it's anyone's guess. It could be placed at traffic lights, in parks, or at sporting events. Oh, and here's the kicker. All of this information collected will be collected without you knowing it. So we're wondering a few things here at RT. How would this information that was gathered be used? Would it be stored? And if so, where? And for how long? These are all answers we don't quite have yet, but you can bet we're going to keep digging.
You know, when you see pictures, let me back up here. When you see an image like, let me see if I can find this. Here we go. Right here. Okay, when you look at this picture, something about this, doesn't it seem like Nazi Germany? Can't you imagine, like the movies you've seen, Nazi Germany? This is going on here in America, folks. This isn't Nazi Germany. This is America, where this is happening. And yet, how many times have you heard people say, oh, not in this country? Well, apparently those people forgot to actually stand behind what they were saying because they were just words, because these things are going on in their country, and the very people who say not in this country aren't doing a darn thing about it. Okay, now we had voter fraud on the Republican side, but let's make sure we are fair to the Democrats as well, because we've got voter fraud over there. Voter fraud complaint filed against Florida Democrats. Florida officials are reviewing allegations of voter registration fraud against the state Democratic Party. The Florida Department of State on Friday confirmed that it has forwarded complaints about voter registration fraud that have been filed against the Democrats, as well as two groups, the Florida New Majority Education Fund and National Council of La Rusa Democrats USA. Neither the agency nor the Florida Department of Law Enforcement would comment, of course, on the allegations of what is involved. So, again, if you think that the system out there is fair, if you think that your vote is actually going to count, guess again. Your vote's not going to count. So the best thing you can do is pretend that this election is an election for your integrity. Pretend this is the last election that will ever take place, and at the end of this election, God is going to come up to you and ask you, did you vote according to who you believed was the best, or did you vote according to your fear? Now, God's not going to get involved with politics, so that's just kind of a weird example, but you get the idea. We need to stand on our integrity. If we keep doing things because somebody tells us, don't vote for Ron Paul because that's a vote for Obama, and we believe it, then we've got no one to blame but ourselves. You see, there's all kind of stupidity that comes out of the mouths of the government and the administration and those who are trying to supposedly help people, and people keep buying all their nonsense. I'm not going to buy any more of their nonsense, and I know that you're not either, which is why you are here. Because if you were interested in listening to their BS, you wouldn't be on this station. You'd be listening to their BS. And you know, let's all stop listening to it. Let's just all turn off the mainstream and all turn off their nonsense and see what happens if we ignore what they're about. All right, now, this is a story that's concerning. This is a gentleman here who found these. Well, here, listen.
I just want to show you these spider webs in the snow. And these fell in the snow. Look, it's on top of the snow. Look at this crap. This wasn't here yesterday. Look at these webs in the snow, guys. So when's everybody going to start waking up? This shit is not natural. It hasn't disintegrated at all. There's tons of them. Just want to show you here. Look at this one. Okay. Oh boy, look at this big long web. And there's freaking a bunch of snow. There you go, guys. You know, and you can see the snow here is really odd. Crystals. Look at that. Anyway, it wasn't supposed to snow at all today. But look at these webs, man. They're everywhere. Look at this one. Goes all the way up here. And it has these crystals dangling off of it. And these webs fell in the snow. They weren't here yesterday. I would have noticed giant webs on my freaking railing yesterday. Nope. Wasn't here. Check that out, guys. Come on. What the hell is going on here?
Okay, so we got giant webs that are falling. So these webs here are falling through the atmosphere. This is part of what is being captured out there. I mean, is this frozen? Are these part of the chemtrails? What is this that is going on? But this is in Colorado. Livermore, California, Colorado. Yesterday. The other day it snowed. On the 5th it says. So what's going on? If it's snowing in your areas, check your snow. See if there's anything like that in there. If there is, make some videos. Send it on in. Let us know. Okay. A couple more stories here. Revolt of the Spooks. This is from the Washington Free Beacon. Weeks before the presidential election, President Barack Obama's administration faces mounting opposition from within the ranks of the U.S. intelligence agencies over what career officer says is a cover-up of intelligence information about terrorism in North Africa. Intelligence held back from senior officials and public include numerous classified reports revealing clear Iranian support for jihadists throughout the tumultuous North Africa and Middle East region, as well as notably widespread al-Qaeda penetration in Egypt and Libya into the months before the deadly September 1st terror attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. The Iranian strategy is twofold: upping the ante for the Obama administration's economic sanctions against Iran and perceived cyber operations against Iran's nuclear weapons program by conducting terror attacks on soft U.S. targets and cyber attacks against U.S. financial interests, says one official speaking. So, a little bit interesting to see that now we got these reports coming from them, from the very intelligence agencies. So sometimes these reports contradict what we've been hearing out there. Okay. From there, I have one piece here. This is all about the Georgia. You know what? We're going to skip this one and do this one tomorrow because we're getting short on time here. We're going to move over to this story here. This is kind of cool. This is a giant eye in space. It's called the Helix Nebula, 650 light years away in the constellation of Aquarius, and this was recently captured by NASA's telescopes. So it's just a giant eye of God looking down out throughout the universe. Pretty amazing, and I thought that would be a good way to move us on forward to the next phase, which is our Warrior of the Light. Well, we're almost through with this. I hope that you are enjoying passages and getting something out of this. This is one of my favorite books. I like to read the passages from time to time. And let me continue on with this. So, jump over here. Get things situated. Alright. Continuing on. A warrior sits around the fire with his friends. They spend hours criticizing each other, but they end the night sleeping in the same tent, having forgotten all the insults that were bandied about. Occasionally, a new member joins the group. Because he does not yet share a common history, he shows only his good qualities, and some see him as a master. But the Warrior of Light never compares him to his old companions in battle. He makes the stranger welcome, but he will not trust him until he knows his defects too. A warrior of the light does not go into battle without knowing the limitations of his ally. The warrior knows an old saying, if regrets could kill, and he knows that regrets can kill, they slowly eat away of the soul at someone who has done something wrong, and they lead eventually to self-destruction. The warrior does not want to die like that. When he acts perversely or maliciously, because he is the man of many faults, he is never too ashamed to ask forgiveness. If possible, he does his best to repair the wrong he has done. If the injured party is dead, then he does some good turn to a stranger and offers up that deed to the soul that he wounded. A warrior of the light has no regrets, because regrets can kill. He humbles himself and undoes the wrong he has done. All warriors of the light have heard their mother say, my son wasn't thinking straight when he did that. Deep down, he's a very good person. Although he respects his mother, he knows that this is not true. He does not waste his time blaming himself for his rash actions, nor does he spend his life forgiving himself for all the wrong that he has done. Doing that would never set him back on the right path. He uses his common sense to judge not the intentions of an action, but its consequences. He takes responsibility for everything he does, even if he has to pay a high price for his mistake. As the old Arabic proverb said, God judges a tree by its fruits, not by its roots. Before making any important decision, declaring a war, moving with his companions to another plane, choosing a field in which to sow seed, the warrior asks himself, how will this affect the 5th generation of my descendants? A warrior knows that everything a person does has enduring consequences, and he needs to understand what kind of world he is leaving behind for that 5th generation. It's just a tempest in a teacup, someone says to the warrior of the light, but he never exaggerates his difficulties and always tries to remain calm, and he never judges someone else's suffering. A small detail which does not affect him in the least could serve to ignite the storm brewing in his brother's soul. The warrior respects the suffering of others and does not try to compare it with his own. The cup of suffering is not the same size for everyone. The most important quality on the spiritual path is courage, says Gandhi. The world seems threatening and dangerous to cowards. They seek the false security of life with no major challenges and arm themselves to the teeth in order to defend what they think they possess. Cowards end up making the bars of their own prison. The warrior of the light projects his thoughts beyond the horizon. He knows that if he does not do anything for the world, no one else will. So he fights the good fight, and he helps others, even though he does not quite understand why. Take a deep breath. Exhale. Imagine all of your chakras are activated. From the bottom of the spine on upward, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and indigo. Feel the connection that you have to the cosmos and the energy that flows through you. And feel the connection you have to the earth and all the energy that flows through you as well. And as you feel all of this energy, feel it overflowing within your body. Feel the warmth and the coolness of this energy. Feel how it makes you feel. And as this energy fills your body and it overflows, it forms that light of protection around you. And just go ahead and notice all around you this line of light. This is your spiritual armor. And turning it on is as easy as we have just done. Making sure your chakras are activated. Seeing the energy fill your body and allowing it to flow outward. And from there you can extend that energy field out farther to fill your room. And even further yet out into the city. And as you send your energy out there, Your energy field joins with the energy fields of others around the planet who are doing exactly the same thing right now. And as all these energy fields together are joined, they form a protection around the planet. And the Earth smiles because the Earth understands that the people on the planet understand their job as caretakers. And as we send this protective energy out into the cosmos, we see this cosmos smile back down upon us. Because the cosmos understands that we understand that we are caretakers. And as we just imagine the Earth and the cosmos smiling, allow ourselves to smile. And in that smile, let's think a good thought for everyone around the planet today. As we bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. There you have it. That's the end of our show to start off the week. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. Just have a great day. Set the tone for a great week. And we'll see how things unfold. Remember, we got 74 days till this cycle ends. So make the most of these next 74 days. Really just keep yourself open. Understand what the universe is bringing to you. What lessons you need to know. Keep open to that. And you're going to be really glad that you did. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. Be safe. Have an awesome day. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.